Welcome to our sixth grade World Geography Distance Learning Plan. This comes from Unit 6, The Cost and Benefits of Unity in Europe. I'm Mr. Hamilton. I'm a sixth grade geography teacher at Charles Hart Middle School. Charles Hart Middle School is a part of DC Public Schools. For weeks 4 and 5 of the World Geography Distance Learning Plan, we're going to be discussing different types of economies and how governments and markets affect those economies. We're going to learn about this in order to answer the compelling question, should governments or markets control the economy? You are going to respond to the compelling question by completing an argumentative essay in which you make a claim regarding this question and provide support from the many resources this learning plan is going to go over. First, a little bit of background on the region that this lesson is a part of. When you discuss Europe, it's necessary to discuss the European Union. The European Union is a collection of almost 30 nations from Europe who've agreed to create a singular group for political and economic purposes. This group does not include the United Kingdom anymore, as they voted to leave the European Union in January 2020. That singular group is the part of the part that is most related to our compelling question. The European Union treats all those countries and all their separate resources, services, and goods as one entity and therefore one market. So when issues such as a global pandemic occur, decisions that affect each individual country differently must also be approached with the union in mind. This distance learning plan for weeks 4 and 5 has 17 total pages. In order to follow along, please notice that the pages are numbered in the bottom right corner. Let's start off by thinking about our compelling question. Should governments or markets control the economy? Throughout our school year, we've discussed both governments and economies. Our compelling question will ask us to combine that previous knowledge and new knowledge that we'll get through this learning plan in order to create an essay that answers this question. The compelling question is especially relevant as we're experiencing a global crisis which is forcing several countries around the world to deal with that exact question. Before we answer the compelling question, though, we need to address our two supporting questions. Let's explore the plan a little bit in order to understand how our two supporting questions will help us gather what we need to inform our essay. Up first, we have supporting question 1. What are the characteristics of command and market economies? As most of you already realize, command and market economies are not the only type of economies that exist. These two are, however, the most popular types in use globally today. The resources that will be used for supporting question 1 are found on pages 3 through 8. Source A, our first source, can be found on page 3. The title of that source is 3 Economic Questions, and it comes from the Discovery Education textbook that you all have access to. In this article, you will read about the relationship between resources and goods and services in an economy. After you read the article, your first task asks you to summarize the key points from the article in a tweet. The template for the tweet can be found on page 4. Remember, tweets are limited to 280 characters that include spaces and punctuation, so choose your words carefully. In the template, each small line is equal to 1 character with 30 characters per line. Our second and third sources, source B and source C, are found on pages 5 through 7. Those sources explain what a command economy and a market economy are. They also discuss the advantages and disadvantages of each of those economic systems. You should pay special attention to the disadvantages and advantages. After reading your sources about the 2 types of economies, you will complete 2 tasks which can be found on page 8. The graphic organizer at the top asked about decision makers in the different economies, the goal of each type of economy, and the advantages and disadvantages of both. The last task for supporting question 1 will have you complete a because but so activity, which can also be found on page 8 at the bottom. You've been given 3 sentence starters, and it'll be your responsibility to complete the sentences using information from source B and source C. All the sentences begin with economists prefer market-based economic systems over command-oriented systems because, but, and so. Now, let's go ahead and start thinking about supporting question 2. How have recent events impacted economic systems in Europe? The resources to help answer that question can be found in the learning plan on pages 9 through 14. Just like you all have had your learning environment impacted because of the coronavirus concerns, economic systems have also been affected worldwide. Source D on page 9, titled Coronavirus Shock versus Global Financial Crisis, the Worst Economic Disaster, looks at the many aspects of economies in Europe and how the effect of the coronavirus pandemic is making an impact on those sectors. Source E, entitled Coronavirus Forces EU Leaders to Weigh Nationalization Options, looks at the many options governments are considering due to the fallout from the pandemic. You will read and annotate both sources in the method that your teacher has shown you. Once you've read those 2 articles, your task for supporting question 2 is to complete a graphic organizer, which can be found on page 14. The graphic organizer asks that you analyze the economic issues that the pandemic has created in the different sectors. You will also identify the proposals for supporting each of those sectors and whether those supports give more power to the government or the market. Now it's time to show what you know in the performance task, which is an essay that answers the compelling question, should governments or markets control the economy? Remember, before you write any essay, it's best that you create a plan. Page 15 of your learning plan gives you space to create an outline for your essay. The first section of your outline has space for a thesis statement. The thesis statement is where you will provide your answer to the question, known as your claim, and you will provide all the evidence to support your claim throughout the body paragraphs of your essay. Beneath the space for your thesis statement, you can gather the evidence for each of your paragraphs. There are a few things you need to remember, though, when you write your essay. In your introduction, include a hook that attracts attention to your essay. Your hook can be a question, a quote, or a statistic about the topic we're discussing. Your thesis statement, which includes your claim and a sentence or 2 laying out the rest of your essay. Brainstorm what components you will include in your introduction in this space. Your 3 body paragraphs will provide evidence and details that support your claim. Remember, your instructions include considering the characteristics and advantages and disadvantages of command and market economies. It also asks that you consider the proposals for the countries in Europe responding to the global pandemic. The sections for your body paragraphs are a great place to gather this information. And finally, your conclusion will be a recap of the main points you discussed in your essay. Make sure you include your claim in this section of your outline, as you need to remind your readers what your position was on the compelling question. Once your outline is complete, you may begin putting together your essay. Remember to look at the rubric on pages 16 and 17. If you answer those questions in the categories, after you write and make edits based on the rubric, it will make sure that your essay is the best you can do. Accuracy, sourcing, organization, and conventions are just a few of the aspects of your essay that will improve your end product. If you have any questions, reach out to your teachers. Thank you for your hard work and know that both your teacher and I appreciate your effort.